The first season of Netflix's Stranger Things had this sudden and pleasantly unexpected impact on pop culture. With its campy conspiratorial mystery involving interdimensional monsters and psychic kids, it could have easily been forgotten. But instead it became Netflix's billion-dollar franchise, quickly making stars out of its cast and its creators, the Duffer Brothers. They're brothers. Twins. Season 1 came out of nowhere and surprised everyone, but Netflix gave the lead up to Season 2 an incredible amount of fanfare. There was a clothing line in Target, Stranger Things, ex-Ghostbusters, Reebok shoes. Lyft had Strange Mode for 2 days on your car ride. You could activate Strange Mode. I don't know what that means. It's just 6 a.m. and I'm trying to make my flight. The first season of Stranger Things boosted Eggo waffle sales because they were featured in the show, so it gave them an opportunity to collaborate in the form of a Super Bowl commercial. The commercial began with the nostalgic 1980s Lego My Eggo ad and ended with a first look at Stranger Things 2. First step Super Bowl, second step Comic-Con. The next trailer would be shown at the show's first big Comic-Con panel and would feature Michael Jackson's Thriller. I can't imagine how much that cost. Netflix really wanted people to know that this was the biggest show of all time. They were gonna spend money on the biggest song from the biggest musician of all time. Stranger Things 2 was promised to be darker and, dare I say, stranger. But many at the time didn't think the show needed to continue, at least in this form. Many wanted the show to take an anthology route because the original pitch was a singular story. And even though they knew they wanted to do more, the end of season 1 is satisfying despite its loose ends. You can tell it was conceived as a whole story. But with 2, Netflix was letting people know that this show was here to stay. Yeah, this is Billiam, and while it's not consensus, many people consider Stranger Things 2 to be the worst season of the show, and I think I agree. I know I agree. This season has the hardest time introducing new characters, and all the plot threads this season have a weaker connection to each other than the previous season. I don't hate it, but for every cool thing it does, it tries to recapture the magic of the first season in a lame way. This might be the worst season of the show, or that might be overstated. Either way, here's a review of Stranger Things 2, Monsters Unleashed. What's scarier than being stalked by a Demogorgon? Walking into a mobile store and being stalked by a salesperson. That's why today's video is sponsored by Mint Mobile. Switching to Mint Mobile is easy and can be done online. Good. I love being able to shop in peace. When you sign up online, you can activate in minutes with eSIM right from the comfort of your own home. No one's gonna stalk you. You can go at your own pace. It's easy. Even easier, you can bring your own unlocked phones or shop the newest phones with Mint. Either way, you get to keep your own phone number, your existing contacts, and with 96% of Mint customers being satisfied with customer support, it's very easy to switch. Mint's 3-month introductory plans cost $15 a month. It's premium wireless without the premium price tag. All plans include unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network. And if you need to make a call to Mexico, Canada, or the UK, it's free. Hotspot is included as well. Mint offers 5 gigabytes, 15, 20, or unlimited data plans each month. So choose the data plan that works for you, and all of them have an unconditional 7-day money-back guarantee. At the link below, new customers can get their premium wireless plan at $15 a month. Thank you so much to Mint Mobile for sponsoring this video.
On Halloween night, Will saw sort of shadow.
15 months after season 1 ended, Stranger Things 2 would release in October of 2017. Perfect timing for its Halloween aesthetic.
Oh, Jesus.
Ghost.
Yeah, I see that.
With the title Stranger Things 2, I find it funny that the Duffer Brothers wanted to compare this season to a movie sequel.
A lot of what we did was just sort of looking at the sequels that, you know, we loved so much growing up and seeing how they succeeded and then trying our best to follow in those footsteps and not mess this thing up.
I may be splitting hairs here, but I do think that movie sequels tend to have a worse reputation than second seasons of television shows. I mean, a lot of shows gain their stride in their second season, but like what most sequels hope for, I like Stranger Things. 1. So there is an inherent part to 2 that works for me, you know, just by having these characters go on another adventure. I do find it funny that they dress up as Ghostbusters this season, because like Ghostbusters 2, Stranger Things 2 doesn't live up to the original, but the foundation of the first was so good that the sequel has a level to it that already works. So what's this season about? The opening doesn't give you any clue. The opening takes place in Pittsburgh, a tease for the 7th episode that takes place in Chicago. We see that there are other psychic girls out there besides 11. This one is a criminal and can make people see what she wants them to see. She's 8. See you around in episode 7, 8. Nearly a year has passed since Will Byers was rescued. It's 1984 and Will still has nightmares of the Upside Down. Joyce and Chief Hopper now take Will to Hawkins' lab for regular checkups. And although the new set of scientists in charge seem like they want to help, they are clueless how. The portal to the Upside Down remains open inside the lab, allowing Will to be psychically linked to a giant, shadowy creature. It's this shadowy creature and the doings of the lab in general at the center of the mystery this season, which in my opinion makes all of these storylines feel much more narratively disconnected than the last season, which had the disappearance of Will Byers at the center of the mystery. Here, it feels a little more loose. Hopper is trying to make a relationship with the new guy in charge, Dr. Owens, because Hopper has secretly adopted 11 and he's hoping he can make a deal for her to live a normal life. So Hopper gets to be involved in the main story, but 11 is off having her own side quest.
I want to see Mama.
This season would attempt to address a lot of people's criticisms of the prior season, but in a way it creates its own unique problems. It falls into many sequel pitfalls. I like how Stranger Things overtly homages its influences, like Steven and Steven, that is to say Spielberg and King. But I really hate how Stranger Things 2 has overt homages to Stranger Things. 1. Like with her Christmas lights, Joyce has once again transformed her home to solve the mystery of what's going on with Will. Something's always going on with that boy. She maps out his drawings, revealing the tunnel system underneath Hawkins being dug by the Mind Flayer, the creature. And oh boy, does this stuff spread out around her home just remind me of last season. I loved last season. And now Mike is sidelined as Will becomes his new supernatural friend to look after, as Will has basically been taken again, but this time mentally.
If when Will was stuck in the Upside Down, he somehow acquired true sight.
True sight gives you the power to see into the ethereal plane.
Dustin adopts a mysterious tadpole-like creature which turns out to be a baby demogorgon or demodog. Doug Demodog. Like 11 and her Eggo Waffles, Dart the Demogorgon baby loves Three Musketeer candy bars. He's named D'Artagnan after one of the Musketeers, named after the candy, this guy. 11 and her Eggo Waffles already felt like an homage to E.T. and his Reese's Pieces.
E.T.'s back.
But now Stranger Things 2 is paying homage to Stranger Things 1 homage to E.T.
Reese's Pieces?
Good call.
It's a rehash in so many ways, but in a way, it also feels like it's resetting this world, resetting it to be the kind of story that can go on for multiple seasons instead of just one. Because you know what? In hindsight, maybe season 1 didn't put enough effort into introducing ancillary characters who could be expanded upon in the second season. And now the second season has to play catch up. Joining the cast is redhead Max and her older brother Billy, who don't have much to add to the story. But as the series continued, many ideas and characters from this season would become very important. In the same way many sequels do, this one sort of feels like they just wanted to do the same thing again, but it also distinctly feels like a TV show in the sense I can tell they are introducing things now because they want to do things with them later. They're setting up other stories rather than servicing the story they're telling now. We're trying to introduce concepts and ideas that can sustain us for at least a few more seasons, said one Duffer brother to Wired. I can't tell them apart, but I do gotta say, I can tell that's the objective of the entire season. So what does work about this season? Let's start big. Coming in hot, I love Bob Newby, Joyce's new love interest. It's the nice guy she deserves, played by Hobbit and Goonie himself, Sean Astin. The name Bob Newby is an on-the-nose acknowledgement that he is a newcomer, and that's a tough position to be in.
I hope it doesn't suck.
Mike reveals at the end of the season that he founded the AV club at their school, something I think should have been established earlier in the season.
Then he had a fundraiser for equipment.
That makes him cool because it's how we can imagine one of the boys grown up. He's like one of them. He's dorky, but he's still able to be heroic. They make you love this guy before his tragically hilarious death at the end of the season. It's a surprise when it happens, but at the same time, it's not a surprise at all. This show will make a habit of only killing characters that were introduced that season. People from season 1, they're off the menu all the time. And immediately I knew I loved the Mind Flayer as a villain. I'm happy it's remained so central to the mythology of the show. Hopper and the scientists mistake Will's visions as trauma responses, and with a Kurt Vonnegut name drop,
Listening to the talking heads and reading Vonnegut.
Will shifting in and out of the Upside Down pays homage to Billy Pilgrim being unstuck from time in Slaughterhouse-5. A fantastical representation of trauma. Fun. The build-up to Will confronting what he thinks is a waking nightmare is so good. Bob tells Will he has to confront this monster, believing it to be a nightmare. And this gives Will hope, because we know it's not going to work out the way Bob and Will think it will.
This time, I stood my ground. I just looked at Mr. Baldo and his stupid face, and I said, "Go away. Go away!"
In fact, that's how Will gets put under its influence. Animated with particles, the shadow monster is part Lovecraftian eldritch being, part alien queen with that big old head of his, and part smoke monster from Lost. How can you not say that? He was psychic too. The Mind Flayer has basically become the central antagonist of the series, as the Demogorgon is revealed to be a part of its hive mind. But it doesn't get the name the Mind Flayer until like the finale. He's iconic nonetheless. They have this motherfucker up in Times Square. He's on Broadway, baby. The coolest thing Stranger Things has ever cooked up. Cooler Things, the Mind Flayer. But to me, Will Byers has always fit into the Stranger Things story in the same way that Doug from the Hangover movies fits into The Hangover. Sure, the story was about him, but the character journeys and chemistry were built around his absence. And I think they do right by the series by prioritizing Will's screen time under other characters. This is really the only season where they give Will anything interesting to do. And because he goes missing and every season splits the characters' storylines up, it's so rare to see his dynamic with the other three boys. He's always the odd one out, but this season in particular, he surprises me with his line deliveries, just like the other kids.
No.
What?
He likes it cold.
But the parts of his performance I really remember this season are the ridiculous parts where he's like screaming in pain because the hive mind's being harmed. Please get this kid a glass of water. This season also realizes Dustin is the most entertaining of the boys. I like Mike, but I love Dustin. One of the highlights this season absolutely is the unexpected pairing of him and Steve. Dustin wants Steve's help fighting his newfound Demogorgon baby, as he heard what Steve did to the Demogorgon in the last season. So Steve brings out his famous baseball bat with nails for all of us to see again. I love Stranger Things 1, except Dustin's thing doesn't grow into a Demogorgon, it grows into a dog.
It's just some little lizard, okay?
It's not a lizard.
How do you know?
How do I know if it's not a lizard?
Yeah, how do you know if it's not just a lizard?
Because his face opened up and he ate my cat.
I've seen on the wiki, this is supposed to be like an earlier stage in the Demogorgon's life cycle, but I don't know where that information comes from. And without the confirmation, I do think the Demodog is kind of lame. So Steve realizes he and Nancy are done, right as Dustin realizes Max is more into Lucas than him. So it's fun to see them both bond in rejection. Steve taking it well gives Dustin more confidence. And I like that Steve has lost his social standing at school. Steve is the subversion of the exact kind of character Billy is, so it's fun to see Billy come to school and literally take his place. Letting Steve step into a different 80s archetypal role of the babysitter, it's a great transformation. One criticism of the first season was the other boys' families weren't really present, aside from Will and Mike.
And next season, we're solving some of the first season's biggest mysteries.
Like, where is the Upside Down?
Is Barb coming back?
And where is that black kid's family?
I will say they do a good job of introducing Dustin and Lucas's family, which really rounds out the world in a necessary way. Dustin and his mom have this great back and forth that really lets us know how buddy-buddy they are as presumably a single mom and an only child.
I love you. Mwah.
I love you.
I love you.
I love you.
All right, go. All right.
The Demogorgon gets her cat. She dresses up as a cat for Halloween. She has a cat in the play, but I won't go there yet. Erica, Lucas's sister, comes in for just a few lines and she completely steals the show. Totally unimpressed with Lucas and his friends.
Seriously, I have a code red.
Could you please shut up?
Yet I was sad to see Karen Wheeler's character basically be erased. Her scenes in the previous season really grounded Mike and Nancy, reminding us that they are, after all, just kids. Though Karen reading smut and being smitten with Billy is a fun scene toward the end of the season.
Hi.
Hi.
I didn't realize Nancy had a sister.
She doesn't really have much to do over the course of 9 hours. The scene of Dustin and Mr. Wheeler just cracks me up. Mr. Wheeler is one of my favorite characters in the show.
Am I done here?
Son of a bitch, you're really no help at all, you know that?
Hey, language.
This season would also begin a tradition of having guest directors. Pixar's Andrew Stanton comes on to direct 2 episodes.
Writer of Toy Story and director of Finding Nemo and WALL-E. I do appreciate the Duffers for letting Stanton out of director jail after Disney brutalized his live action career with John Carter. He directs episodes 5 and 6. And the 6th hour, The Spy, is one of the best episodes of the season, leading to the revelation of the Demodog horde and that the Mind Flayer has used Will to set up a trap for Hawkins' lab.
So that's really what works for me. Luckily, I think the creature at the center of it all is cool. But what doesn't work for me is holistically. Unlike the last season, there's not really a satisfying moment where all of the stories come together, because it's not like they're connecting the threads to the same mystery. I mean, they sort of are, but it's at such a broader scale than the disappearance of Will Byers. And here, I really feel like they're tediously keeping the characters separated, arbitrarily even. Mike, unfortunately, gets so much less to do this season. Afraid of losing his friend again, he stays by Will all season to figure out what's going on with him.
He can't really do anything. So he sort of just turns into this loner who can't really develop as a person. I think he just kind of stops.
Somebody get Mike a bike and have him go somewhere on it. This is Stranger Things. 2. The kids in general are much better actors this season, but they're aging really fast, which is a fun creative challenge that they do address in every season, as we really don't see the same version of these characters twice. Though there's one line in particular that I feel like was written for these characters last season instead of this season, and they say it over and over again. Mike and Will call his visions of the Upside Down now memories.
Do you see anything? I mean, in your now memories?
I feel like this kind of babyish talk could have worked last season, but doesn't work this season. They're just a little too old to be calling it something like that. And I really don't like Eleven's storyline with Hopper this season. 11 is revealed to have escaped the Upside Down shortly after defeating the Demogorgon. Because of the government presence, she couldn't reconnect with the gang, so she survived in the woods hunting squirrels and shit until she came across Hopper, who had been leaving her food out in the woods. He feels bad for selling her out last season, and now she lives in his cabin but is growing impatient once again, feeling like she's stuck inside the lab.
You are like Papa!
Really? I'm like that psychotic son of a bitch?
That's a big deal. Papa was really bad. Don't call Hopper Papa. I feel like everybody wanted these 2 characters to be paired together in this kind of way. It's very cathartic as we saw the pain Hopper felt losing his daughter. But I just think this show has a bad habit of dragging out story progression.
I appreciate how Hopper isn't all of a sudden this sweet guy, and from a horror perspective, I appreciate 11 having this anger building up inside of her, but they never allow her to become intimidating or to truly feel dangerous. It feels like a half measure. 5.5.
Stranger Things wants to be more cinematic than your traditional 22 episode television season. And that's admirable. But something I think Stranger Things and more 8 to 10 episode streaming shows need to take from traditional television is the midpoint. The mid-season finale. 4 hours is a lot of runtime, and I personally think by the midpoint of a season, things should progress significantly. Like you could have 11 reunite with the gang at episode 4, and then you could introduce a new conflict, so they're aware of each other, but not necessarily spending time with each other until the end of the season. Instead, Stranger Things constantly feels like it introduces these conflicts at the beginning of the season that feel like they should just take a couple of episodes, but take the entire season. And now we get to those new characters. In Stranger Things 1, every character was following threads of the same mystery, but Max, played by Sadie Sink, and her older brother Billy, played by Dr. Montgomery, feels so detached from the mystery this season or anything previously established. Max's story arc literally feels like a justification for her joining the cast. Lucas literally has to convince Max that the events of season 1 happened.
How gullible do you think I am?
Why would I make this up?
And she does not believe him. And then Mike has to be convinced to let her join them when they go off doing things.
Also, we don't need another party member.
He really misses 11. Between a character literally being named Newbie and the hesitance to allow Max to join the party, I think they're trying to examine newcomers as a form of outsider, but instead of being interesting, it feels like they're just aware it's an awkward situation and are attempting to write to it. But again, it's not interesting. Though I like Max, she doesn't know D&D, so when Mike says she can't join their party because they have every class they need, she has an argument he can't refute. They need a Zoomer on their team. That's not a D&D class.
Well, I could be your Zoomer.
She rides her skateboard very fast and Mike laughs, finally opening up to her for a moment. But the moment is ruined because this happens to be when 11 is coming to finally say hi to Mike, but she sees Max, another girl, and angrily knocks her off her skateboard. You know, with her mind, she does it psychically. So Mike feels her, but doesn't see her. And it pisses me off so much. It pisses me off for so many reasons. It's dumb to have 11 just get jealous of another girl like that. Why couldn't Max be her friend too? Why are you arbitrarily keeping the characters apart for an entire season? It just pisses me off. And the biggest thing for this character to overcome in order to join the quest is her older brother, Billy. So she comes along with her own season-long obstacle. And I sort of like the idea of adding this physically intimidating shithead as a threat. Say it! A guy like that can be way scarier than an interdimensional monster. So I don't really dislike Billy and Max inherently, but getting ahead of myself, I feel like a version of the story they get in the next season would have been better to introduce them with. And in general, I just think later seasons do better at introducing new characters by giving them a personal attachment to the mystery, whether the monster has come after them or somebody they know. I feel like by having the monster target Will again, we lose this opportunity to naturally introduce new characters. You could still have explored Will's connection to the Upside Down. Being affected by a monster or having to go hunt the monster inherently makes some of these stories more interesting. Anyways, Nancy and Jonathan's storyline is far less interesting this season considering they're not chasing a monster. Nancy and Jonathan decide they have to start investigating the lab right now because of the disappearance of her friend Barb last season. It's been a year, why start now? It's another storyline that feels disconnected to the main story. But if you watched Stranger Things as it aired and paid attention to the conversation, you'd recognize this as fan service.
What the f***? You forget about something? You forget about old Barb?
People went nuts for Barb. Many thought she was an authentic representation of a teenage gal in the 1980s. Shannon Purser was even nominated for an Emmy, and she became legendary after being killed in the show's 3rd episode. That's the kind of job I want. After the show came out, people involved with it could not do an interview without having to talk about Barb, this minor character that people loved, unexpectedly, organically, as organic as the digestive thing that's happening to her when she dies. She's fucking dead.
The elephant in the room, dead Barbara Holland. So we've realized from the fans that Barb is important. And
Justice for Barb this season.
For Barb.
You know?
Hashtag it.
I have been told that there is justice for Barb in season 2.
Justice for Barb.
First and foremost, I'm Team Barb, I guess.
Team Barb, thank you.
Yeah.
We love Barb.
The whole phenomena of Barb is hilariously parodied when Steve and Nancy can't get away from photos of her at her parents' house. Nancy tries to go to the bathroom and there's even a photo there. Barb Barb is looking at her all the time. Dr. Owen's openness to answer Nancy's questions about Barb gets him caught on hot mic, which Nancy and Jonathan plan to use to shut down the lab. It's part of the reason why I love Dr. Owens. That guy can't do wrong, even when he screws up.
One's responsible for what happened to your brother and Miss Holland's death. They're gone.
But having the inciting incident to Nancy and Jonathan's story be from last season, when all the other characters have their inciting incidents this season, just makes it feel so out of place. Everyone else is roped into the narrative through stranger things happening right now.
All of a sudden, some strange things are happening to me.
But I have trouble justifying why Nancy and Jonathan would have waited until now to start their investigation. Also, Murray, the PI hired by Barb's parents who helps Nancy and Jonathan put the story together, overstays his welcome. I like the idea of this conspiratorial-minded character being added to the series, but he overstays his welcome when he becomes a love guru that pressures Jonathan and Nancy to give in to their teenage lust at his house.
How was the pullout?
It just feels like Murray represents viewers' feelings about Nancy and Jonathan not getting together in the last season.
As an antisocial outsider with no emotional connection to the town, I find Murray's cause hard to get attached to. He's funny, but he's very shallow. I would have loved this storyline to go to maybe Mr. Clark, the boy's science teacher who really could have had an expanded role in the series, but alas, his character largely remains off to the side.
And then their whole storyline in general just feels like a response to the Justice for Barb meme. A meme that turned into an Emmy nomination, not saying she didn't deserve it. But this storyline feels unnatural and it doesn't work for me. With Hopper getting trapped in tunnels and just doing his own thing, Eleven finally grows impatient and goes on her own journey. Discovering Hopper's files on Hawkins' lab, Eleven finds out her name is really Jane and finds photos of her mother who she tries to contact. She finds her mother repeating the same phrases she was saying over and over again to Hopper and Joyce. But Eleven is now able to psychically communicate with her.
Rainbow. 450. Green. Sunflower.
Revealing the meaning of those words and that Eleven has a sister. Another kid who was experimented on who escaped from Hawkins' lab. Callie. Experiment 008. 618 before Stitch. So Eleven goes to Chicago to reunite with her Ohana, where she finds Callie, 8, now running around with a criminal gang, a gaggle of one-note baddie misfits, who all feel significantly more shallow than the series' examination of newcomers, which already felt pretty shallow. It's a big missed opportunity, and just to explain how badly this episode is placed. Right before this, Will is revealed to be a spy for the Mind Flayer. Dustin's baby Demogorgon is revealed to be one of an entire horde, and the Mind Flayer uses Will to begin an invasion of Hawkins. So in its 16th hour, a show that so often picks up immediately where the last episode ended, as a follow-up to Demon Dogs invading Hawkins, we go to Chicago.
Watch it, kid. It's a bottle episode.
The show is written to feel like one long movie. So to do this bottle episode that completely takes place in another location feels like such a strange thing, but not quite Stranger Things, if you know what I'm saying. Callie can make people see things. That's her quirk. And like an angry Yoda, she tries to teach Eleven to tap into her anger, to tap into her power. But the two splinter when Eleven's psychic powers makes her see a vision of her friends in danger, and when Callie tries to push Eleven to kill a former lab technician that tortured them. Callie makes the lab technicians see them when they were just babies. He said, "Oh, I know those babies!" The episode does play an important role in Eleven's story as she finds out Papa is probably still alive. And like Luke on Dagobah, she abandons her training to go help her friends, admitting Hawkins is her true home.
Going home.
Okay, so what the hell? Callie, as she's written currently, is not a good character. And leading into the last season, she has yet to make a reappearance after this episode. The moral dilemma she gives Eleven feels so played out. And in a season that already feels so disconnected, this was just the cherry on top. If they wanted to do this storyline, why didn't they try tying it into the rest of the narrative? Instead of having it take place outside of town, Callie could have come to Hawkins. Nancy and Jonathan could have helped Eleven learn Callie is 8, or that who her mother was. I mean, they're investigating the lab this season, why not bring them into this? Dustin and Steve worked because the pairing was unexpected, and I feel like nowhere else this season do they attempt to explore new dynamics like this. Callie's desire to kill lab technicians could have grown into her helping Nancy and Jonathan shut down the lab. I'm not saying that's what had to happen, but there's potential to tie this storyline into the rest of the narrative. The bottle episode was such a bad approach. Of the episode's negative reception, the Duffers, I'm assuming at the exact same time, word for word, said this: "Whether it works for people or not, it allows us to experiment a little bit. It's important for us to try stuff and to not feel like we're doing the same thing over and over. It's almost like doing a whole other pilot episode in the middle of your season, which is a crazy thing to do, but it was really fun to write and cast and work on." And it does just feel like a backdoor pilot. I hate how expensive their warehouse headquarters looks. It feels like they're going to host a show here, not hide from the police. It's distinctly giving spin-off energy. I understand this episode. I'm sympathetic to the idea of doing something just because it's creatively challenging, but the experiment failed. But it didn't ruin the season. It's just indicative of the rest of the season. And it is pretty notable that season 2 is one episode longer than the last season and the next season. So this episode really sticks out like a sore thumb. But it could have really been a part of the bigger story. I kind of like Eleven getting mixed up with the wrong crowd. Her learning how to say bitchin' is the perfect follow-up to the all too sweet scenes of Mike and the gang teaching Eleven about friends and promises. Stuff that makes me say, "Aww, promise." Any good ideas this episode had should have been repurposed for the season's larger narrative.
Between Mike and Eleven, I think the direction these characters go in this season can be justified, but the choices they make with them are by no means engaging. By and large, critics responded to season 2 of Stranger Things overwhelmingly positively, but almost universally, this single episode was panned. My critic quote would be, "Eleven makes her way to the Windy City and oh boy, does it blow." It was called jarring and inane, pointless side quest. Catherine Van Arendonk, writing for Vulture, said, "It's not especially fun on its own, and rather than deepen the season's characters or expand the world, it instead highlights the weaknesses you might otherwise be able to ignore." This is so true. Sure, it's easy to isolate it as a single episode, but it makes me think that the idea to have this as a single episode is what dragged down the rest of Eleven's story this season. They were arbitrarily building up to a bottle episode. Laura Bradley for Vanity Fair said it right that her story exists almost entirely separately from every other plotline. Instead, she spends most of the season sitting in an isolated cabin eating Eggos alone. Again, I agree. After being kept a secret from most of the cast last season, once again, Eleven is unable to develop any chemistry with most of the cast. It's a wild decision that persists over 8 hours of the season.
It's really in the finale where Stranger Things shines. It has a lot of great momentum finally. Even if things coming together lacks the same kind of excitement as the last season, with a horde of demodogs, the final episode gives Bob Newby a chance to be a hero, accessing the lab's central computers to open the exits. The Duffers brought up James Cameron a lot as inspiration towards where to take the sequel to Stranger Things, so the horde of demodogs definitely channels James Cameron's Aliens. The problem with me is I am one of those miserable bastards who thinks that Alien is definitively better than Aliens. Hey, say whatever you want to say about me in the comments. I've already said worse to myself. So try saying something nice, idiot. I just find one or a few monsters to be scarier than a horde. Like the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park, and they channel that too. There's so much Spielberg in this Omelette Day homage.
In the first season, the Demogorgon was largely created using a practical costume, which influenced its design and gave it a kind of menacing presence. And I am by no means a practical effects absolutist, but the Doug Demodogs of the Dimsdale Demodome, aka the Upside Down, are a little too cartoonish for my liking. Even when they kill Bob, they are not scary.
I'm not surprised he dies. It's not surprising at all that this character dies the same season he's introduced. And in a way, I definitely think this show he's out when it comes to killing off its characters. But they give you so many complicated feelings about Bob's death. It's hilarious and heartbreaking, and I applaud them for that. The reunion with Eleven and everyone at the Byers home is underwhelming, and I find Mike's dramatic confrontation with Hopper over his lying about having Eleven and knowing where she is to fall flat emotionally. It's just funny to watch this little boy confront Hopper like this.
Stop it. That's okay. Stop it. Stop it.
Her appearance feels like a deus ex machina, as her psychic powers gives them a way to defeat the Mind Flayer, who is finally dubbed the Mind Flayer in like the final 2 episodes. Named after the psionically inclined and supremacist Elithid from D&D, which is inspired by Lovecraft. These characters were made even more famous after the show because of their prominence in Baldur's Gate 3. In 2025, the Mind Flayer is bigger than it's ever been before. Steve standing up to Billy as he tries to take Max from the group and threaten those kids is a great moment for the character. Kind of got roped into fighting the monster the first time, but here he's standing up to a monster who's gonna kick his ass. Max asserting her independence over her abusively controlling stepbrother is satisfying, but I think the way this whole group gets involved with the final action, returning to the tunnels to burn them and weaken the hive mind, feels disconnected and like a side mission. Dustin's reunion with Dart is confusing after receiving the hive mind explanation, considering Dart doesn't attack Dustin, but I think it's supposed to show us that those affected by the hive mind can fight its influence to a degree, just like Will does with the power of music and friendship. This is a motif that will come back in the series, and it makes me wonder if in the final season they're gonna have to go against a possessed Eleven and they'll bring her back through Eggo waffles. They've been planting the seeds this whole time. Eleven and Hopper descending down to the portal for an Eleven screaming is cool in like an anime kind of way, but I think it lacks the emotional depth of Hopper rescuing Will in the last season. The climax of this season is just so much weaker than the last.
But the fact that we needed a funeral for Barb feels like fan service and feels like an entire season-long storyline that's just as irrelevant as Eleven's escapade in Chicago. Like, where is Bob Newby's funeral? Though I will admit, Will's drawing of Bob Newby, superhero, really does tug at my heartstrings.
Though the ending scene at the school is obviously a home run, Eleven getting to live a semi-normal life without the lab existing in Hawkins, gets to go to the dance that Mike mentioned in the last season. Max and Lucas kiss, but it's sweet Dustin who steals the show. No one wants to dance with Dustin, and after becoming ladies' man Steve Harrington's protege, he kinda takes rejection hard. He thought he had this figured out. But when Nancy rejected Steve Harrington herself comes up to Dustin and offers him a dance, she tells him that girls his age are just dumb and that he'll be killing it when he grows up.
But give him a few years. No ways up.
It's so heartwarming, and it's the one moment in this season that genuinely makes me tear up, especially when she tells him,
Out of all of my brother's friends, you're my favorite.
They're dancing, they're having a good time, yet even with the portal closed, the Mind Flayer still lurks over those children in the Upside Down. Which to me is a much bigger signal that this show would be continuing than the ending of the last season. Strange things are happening indeed. Stranger things, there's a parallel there.
Listening to the talking heads and reading Vonnegut.
How did we get here? If Jonathan ain't me, he's definitely a part of my Karas.
Thank you so much to our gold level Patreon members on screen now. You can support us by subscribing, becoming a free member on our Patreon even.
The mid-2010s were the era of TV after shows. Chris Hardwick hosted the Talking series on AMC with Talking Bad and The Talking Dead, in which every episode of the show would feature an after show. For season 2, Netflix had Beyond Stranger Things, a 7-episode after show series hosted by Community's Jim Rash.
All right, if you're like me, you just watched 9 hours of Stranger Things, and I am feeling exhilarated, I am blown away, I'm shocked, I'm mad, not mad at the show.
And you know what? I'm starting to realize that the Demogorgon may be an homage to the Greendale human being. This format really doesn't work when you're not following it episode by episode. It's a drag to watch all 7 of these in a row.
Thank you for being here with me. This is such a fun discussion, and it really has been and continue to be a great discussion of everything Stranger Things 2.
But it is fun getting a behind-the-scenes look at the process.
I know it's anecdotal, but most people I know who watched this show when it first aired lost interest after this season. I see it considered the worst in online discourse frequently, but of course, even if the second season didn't live up to the first in so many people's opinion, the show was a freight train that would only continue to grow as it aired.
So next time, we're going to be taking a look at Stranger Things Season 3, when they did a silly one. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and as always, see ya.